Hey everyone! I'm Albert Boris. So, Mario Kart World is an absolutely amazing time, although I'm sure that's nothing controversial to state. It's been almost exactly a month now since the game was first released, and now that most of the recency bias has worn off, and I've accumulated well over 40 hours in the game, I can still safely say that this is easily the best game in the series by a mile. Although then again, that wasn't exactly hard to pull off, with how much more content it has, and how much more engaging the gameplay is. So for any of you who were concerned with my day 1 Mario Kart game ranking, don't worry, that still absolutely holds up. However, just because it's the best game in the series for me, that obviously doesn't mean that it's perfect. It's less of a Super Mario Odyssey and more so another Super Mario Party Jamboree situation, where instead of it being a nearly flawless masterpiece, it just has way less issues than its predecessors, and the positives greatly outweigh whatever previous games delivered on. Which is why today I wanted to go through what is in my opinion the 8 biggest problems with the game, ranging anywhere from just trivial nitpicks to some admittedly really stupid decisions. And before anyone asks, no, I'm not gonna bring up the price. Yeah, it sucks, but it's also not exactly a problem with the game itself as much as it's with Nintendo's business practices. It's not Mario Kart World's fault that it's $80. But anyways, before we get started, if you're new to the channel but enjoy my videos, make sure to hit the subscribe button and like the video, as it would really help me out and incentivize me to make more videos more often. And so with all of that being said, let's finally begin now. Let's start off nice and easy with what is probably the most insignificant nitpick, that being the sticker system. The what? Yeah, so if you don't know or already forgot, I wouldn't blame you, Mario Kart World finally brings back emblems from Mario Kart DS that you can put on your kart after 20 long years. Although instead of just drawing your own symbol, this time you have a select amount of stickers you can use instead, which you earn by either getting achievements such as driving a certain amount of distance, or by doing P-switch missions in the open world. That sounds cool enough, except you can barely even see them on your kart anyways. I have never once noticed them in my 40 hours of playing the game, nor do I honestly feel the need to care at all either, since most of them are kinda boring and generic anyways. Fortunately though, this is also so trivial that it doesn't affect my opinion on the game in the slightest, since after all it doesn't change how you play the game, it's just a bit sad that it's so forgettable it might as well not exist. Literally the most notable thing I can say about them is the fact that they're the only rewards you get for doing free roaming missions, and even then I couldn't care less there either, because that's not the reason I do them. I do them just because I think it's fun to explore the vast world and hone my driving skills. And heck, for that matter, I don't really care that there's no store mode tied to free roaming either. All I ever wanted to do since I got my first Mario Kart game was to have the freedom to explore every track there is and learn about them, and the fact that I can finally do that now is really all that I need. Although anyways, we're getting a little off topic now. The point is, the stickers are boring in my opinion, and it would have been cooler if they were not only more visible, but also more exciting and personalizable. Next, another just minor annoyance to me is the lack of a proper jukebox to listen to the game's soundtrack with. See, the OST of Mario Kart World is a little bit different from the other games, and by a little, I mean the philosophy is completely different. The majority of songs in here are remixes of various Mario themes across the series that will play during menus, intermissions, or free roam. It's a pretty beautiful way to celebrate the Mario franchise up until this point, and while most of the remixes aren't anything that noteworthy, since their purpose is just to blend in while playing, some of them are pretty kick-ass, and considering there are well over 200 songs of this type, obviously there has to be a way to just listen to whatever song you want to, right?
No.
Nintendo, why? Do you want us to not be able to listen to your amazing music? It would be one thing if the soundtrack was at least on the Nintendo Music app, but not only is it still not, but knowing Nintendo, they're just gonna drip feed a few songs every 10,000 years once we do get it anyways. And like, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe already had a jukebox, so why remove it in the following game? And that's probably the least concerning thing that was changed for the worse. Granted, however, this is still a very trivial nitpick. As I said, I don't personally care that much for most of the songs anyways, and it's not exactly like this changes how I feel about playing the game, it's just a dumb oversight that feels like it should have been included and would have greatly enhanced the experience. And again, even if I don't have much passion for the OST, that doesn't mean no one else does, and it's just kinda rude to deprive us of that. It's not a major deal, but it's a deal nevertheless. Okay, now we're getting into some of the more serious issues of the game though. Starting with the absolute cluster that is the character select screen. Seriously, how did we ever get to this abomination? What, was having every character visible at once too lame and old school? Because I see literally no excuse for this layout. Maybe if there were like, what, way more characters than normally, I could see there maybe being one additional page or two, because there wouldn't be enough to fill out the screen. Not f***ing 10,000! And it's not even like there's any viable reason for this, it has almost the same amount of characters as Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. They just decided to make the character icons way bigger for some reason. And no, don't bring up that they needed to squeeze in the alternate costumes in the select menu, because they absolutely did not. Mario Kart 8 and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe already showed us how to handle skins of their drop-down menus. I hate having to refer back to an 11-year-old game, especially because I think Mario Kart 8 is deeply problematic in its own right, but the fact that they felt the need to fix what wasn't broken in the slightest just boggles my mind on so many levels. Thankfully though, this isn't as awful as it could have been, because at least there is also the option to sort the roster by character. And while it's still not optimal, it's better than nothing. Because there's not even any coherent logic or consistency in the regular sorting, they just sorta order drivers as they felt. Even if this problem isn't higher on the list, it's still really bad, and not being able to see every character at once makes it way more frustrating to decide who you want to play as, since you're gonna have to scroll a while to get to each character. Personally, I've kind of gotten used to it now, hence why it's still pretty low on the list, but I wouldn't blame you for putting this one higher. And this isn't the only character related problem I'll discuss in the video. We'll be back soon. But first, let's go back to free roaming for a bit. As mentioned earlier, I absolutely love the free roaming mode of this game. It's probably my favorite part of Mario Kart World, and a huge reason why it's the best installment in the series for me. What can I say, I'm a travel explorer at heart, and it's why open world games speak to me so much. Unfortunately, the world of Mario Kart World is filled to the brim with stuff to do, from P-switch missions you can initiate, as well as question mark panels to drive over and Peach medallions to collect. All of it incentivizes you to explore this vast lush world, and at no point did I ever get bored, because there's always something intriguing to find, even if you just drive for a short while. But why doesn't the game track which collectibles you have and which ones you don't? The most it does tell you is how many question mark panels you've found in each area, as well as how much you have of everything in total. You have no way of knowing where any of the switches or medallions are, and while I guess I can kind of see why it's the case, since Nintendo wants you to explore and find everything on your own, after a certain point it just becomes a point of frustration when you want to 100% the game and can't find anything. Either there should have been a way to pay a few coins to get the location of a random switch, a bit like how you can do in Mario Odyssey, or at the very least, it should track the collectibles you've not only gotten on the map, but also the ones you've attempted to get but haven't succeeded at yet. Because these aren't so easy either. Some of the P-switch missions are absolutely brutal, and the Peach medallions can be pretty cryptic to collect a lot of the time. To the point that I'll sometimes just drop them for the moment and focus on something else. But then because of how many collectibles there are in total, there's also the risk that I'll forget where they once were once I do feel like tackling them again, which, yeah, that kinda sucks. Especially since some of them are just located in the middle of nowhere. This is another issue that could be a lot higher for some people, but for me personally, I suppose it's not that much of a deal breaker because, well, I don't really care about 100%ing free roaming anyways. For me, I just like exploring the world as it is, and if I happen to come across a mission while doing so, that's cool. But for me, the most enjoyable way of playing free roam has always just been to go wherever I feel like. And besides, if you really want to 100% the game but struggle, there are numerous guides you can follow online. This is still ultimately a bit futile for me. You haven't seen the worst yet. Okay, so when it comes to the character roster itself, it seems people are fairly divided on whether they love it or hate it. Personally, I thought it looked a bit funny when it was first revealed, but now that we're used to it, yeah, I'm sorry, but this is just so much junk. The returning characters are all great enough. I'm happy to see that Pauline and Wiggler have become mainstays to the franchise, Chard and Chuck, Nabbit and Hammerbro make their well-deserved return from Mario Kart Tour, and even among the newcomers, I think Spike and Pianta were well overdue for a playable appearance. Oh yeah, and the cow is absolutely kingly. Considering how much of a cult status she has in the Mario Kart franchise, she stands out in a comedic way while still making sense anatomically as a racer, since she could still technically drive a kart. Oh yeah, and I guess the penguin is acceptable too. But everything else... what were they thinking? It's just a bunch of generic-ass Mario enemies. Not only are most of them boring and blank slates with no personality, but half of them don't even have the arms or legs necessary to be able to drive. There were so many other actual characters that could have been here instead, including ones that were cut from previous games, mind you. And heck, there were even other Mario enemies that would have made more sense. In what world does Cheep Cheep or Fishbone deserve to be here over Blooper or Magikoopa? Some will say I have no joy or whimsy, and that I'm taking a silly spin-off about a plumber too seriously, which I guess that's not entirely wrong. But personally, just because Mario Kart is fictional, does that mean it shouldn't have any semblance of realism? By that logic, nothing fictional ever needs to make sense because none of it is real anyways. It just feels wrong for me that characters that shouldn't be able to drive are suddenly playable now, even though they realistically wouldn't be able to. Obviously, this is just my opinion. If you like these characters, more power to you. And I guess some of these picks are kinda funny, but even then, I fail to see who exactly is gonna clamor for Parabidibug, a green blob, and a f***ing bat. The reason this is only number 4 and not higher though is because, well, not only are there still enough good characters available that this doesn't affect me personally, but also because no matter what, there's still just different coats of paint that don't affect gameplay in any way. And no, I don't give a shit about meta. However, this generosity cannot be shared with the top 3 of the list. Battle mode is so mediocre in this game. I had my expectations tempered that this mode was going to be an afterthought going in, as there was almost no marketing for it, and the full map didn't really seem to have a lot of visible battle stages, but even so, while I wasn't disappointed as a result, I still thought it sucked after how good battle mode was in 8 Deluxe. Because not enough that we're reduced to only having balloon battle and coin runners again, but some of the stages take place on the regular race courses. Because those sure were well received back in Mario Kart 8, right? Or okay, they did barely learn a lesson, because instead of just battling on the racetracks as they are, this time they've blocked off some areas to make for a more organic arena. Plus the whole map has been somewhat repurposed. But guess what, the off-road still slows you down and makes you an easy target, confining you to the narrow roadways either way, where you have less opportunities. The best I can say about Balloon Battle is that at least the game over after losing your balloons now, raising some of the stakes, but honestly, I'd rather go back to Mario Kart Wii's take on Battle Mode, because at least it actually had some good f***ing stages. For reference, they brought back what was probably the worst stage from there, ruined it, and it's still somehow one of the more tolerable levels in this game. Let that sink in. But hey, at least there's Big Donut, which definitely nullifies any previous problem this mode has. If this was any other Mario Kart game, this would have single-handedly brought down the game by so many margins. But because Mario Kart World has far more game modes than previous installments had, I shockingly don't care that much for the ruined battles. In old games where this was the only alternative to regular racing, it would have stinged far more if it sucked. But because of how much this game reinvents the wheel in other areas, even this is kinda minor for me. And to be fair, considering how much effort they put into everything else, it's completely understandable why Battle Mode turned out the way it did. That said, it still sucks for everyone who did look forward to it, and I'm not gonna sugarcoat it just because there could have been a worse scenario. At least it's barely playable, but it wouldn't have mattered if it wasn't in the game at all for me. Okay, so number 2 is actually multiple problems which all share a common flaw they suffer from, namely the lack of customizable options. And I'm not just talking about the lack of 200cc, even if that's certainly disappointing too, and would have worked perfectly with the intermissions. But more importantly, it's really showing that the developers wanted us to play this game a certain way, no matter if the execution is actually good. Take versus mode for example. If you're playing offline, it's actually really good, giving you full reign to decide whether you want to play classic free lap courses or if you'd like to have intermissions leading up to them. But when it comes to online, yeah, f*** you. The default option is almost always that you have to pick a track with an intermission leading up to it. Sometimes you're lucky and get a disconnected course you can vote for, but most of the time that's not the case. And while in the past, random was always a guarantee to get a standard free lap experience, even that was changed as early as last week. Now it's more likely than not for it to be another intermission track as well. How hard is it to just give us an option? I get the developers are probably proud of the intermission tracks they made, and while they are fun enough, thanks to the gameplay of Mario Kart World, they will never be as fun as actual tracks, which are more twisted and technical than glorified straightaways ever will be. Although, ironically enough, the straightest line of them all is also the most engaging one. But the point is, it just sucks that we can't really play as we want to, making this probably one of the most flawed online modes in the Mario Kart series. And I mean, heck, even in offline versus mode, there are several exclusive variants to some tracks like in Shy Guy Bazaar that you can't play normally either. You can only race on them if you arrive from another track prior, which again, what's the point of this? The other problems I already mentioned in the video were already bad enough, but this is the first one on the list that actually affects how much I'll come back to the game, as there's just not as much incentive to do regular races with people if it's 90% of the time just gonna be another repetitive intermission taking up most of the time. Variety is the key, something which the intermissions are not that good at dishing out. Just give us separate rooms for Christ's sake. But whatever, none of this lays a finger on the absolutely biggest problem of the game. The f***ing unlockable system. How on earth do you make the unlockables so bad that a part of me almost wishes we just didn't have them? It's already a bit baffling how the Special Cup is the only Grand Prix Cup you have to unlock out of 8, as well as how the developers thought characters like Donkey Kong or Daisy were worthy rewards for beating them. However, the absolutely worst idea that was ever conceived for this game is the Kamek Orb. Not as an item per se, it's kinda cool how it causes a bunch of enemies to spawn on the road before you, but for some f***ing reason, it's also the way you unlock the generic NPC characters, by getting transformed into them. Yup, it's all luck. There's the risk that you might never get every character. And that's not even my hyperbole speaking. I still have yet to get Rocky Wrench, Cataquack, Swoop, and Peepa. In part due to how freaking rare the Kamek item is to make things worse. So even if you try to cheese it with that multiplayer grinding method, it's gonna take a very long time. Not that I really care about playing as these characters anyways, but still. In the past, unlockables have always been my driving force to continue playing Mario Kart games, as it felt good to get rewarded as you got better at the game. But honestly, if I had known that there would be no skill at all to them in this game, I'd rather just not have these characters be unlockable to begin with. I can't wrap my head around why they thought this was a good idea, nor do I honestly think I can. It's so mind-numbingly idiotic, it makes Gen Alpha brain rot seem intelligent by comparison. Screw this, screw the characters you unlock, screw all of this bullshit. Okay, I should probably take a chill pill now, considering I'm on vacation in the high coast. But yeah, those are the biggest problems that I personally have with Mario Kart World. I got pretty passionate towards the end of this video, but even in spite of all of this is still my favorite Mario Kart game for sure, and the only S tier entry in the series. At its core, Mario Kart has always been a fairly repetitive series, which while is fun, does get old pretty quickly if you play too much of it in a short time span. And that is in part due to the fact that despite being incredibly creative as a racing franchise, the gameplay has still never usually been particularly mind-blowing or engaging, and usually there's not much to do at all outside of racing. It's not like Mario Party where there's often a ton of things to do outside of board play. And that's why Mario Kart World, even despite its fair share of issues, will always hold my respect, just for how much it goes out to make Mario Kart more than just Mario Kart. It's got way more technicality to its playstyle than any previous game, and the open world aspect opens up so many doors and makes the experience more alive than varied than anything before. However, this is still just my opinion. But what are your biggest issues with the game? Did you agree with me or not? If you enjoyed this video, then make sure to subscribe and comment down below what you think of Mario Kart World so far. And in the meantime, follow me on my Discord server, Greenpipe City, as well as on Twitter and Patreon for more updates, and I'll see you all soon. Until next time.